How cults work. Cult recruitment. You may have an idea of a cult recruit as an obviously troubled young person, maybe mentally ill, easily exploited by unethical cultists. But studies show that people who join cults have only a slightly higher incidence of psychiatric disorders than the general population. Cult members come from all walks of life, all age groups and all personality types. However, one common thread among most cult recruits is heightened stress. Research indicates that a majority of people who end up joining a cult were recruited during a particularly stressful period. This could be the stress associated with adolescence, leaving home for the first time, a bad breakup, losing a job, or the death of a loved one. People undergoing significant stress can be more susceptible when a person or a group claims to have the answer to all of their problems. Michael Longoni, Ph.D., a psychologist who specializes in cults, also identifies some psychological traits that can make a person more likely to be successfully recruited, including dependency, an intense desire to belong, stemming from a lack of self-confidence; unassertiveness, a reluctance to say no or question authority; gullibility, a tendency to believe what someone says without really thinking about it; low tolerance for uncertainty, a need to have any question answered immediately in black and white terms; disillusionment with the status quo, a feeling of marginalization within one's own culture and a desire to see that culture change; naive idealism, a blind belief that everyone is good; desire for spiritual meaning, a need to believe that life has a higher purpose. Cult recruiters hang out in places where you might find people in a period of extreme stress or possessing the above personality traits, which is anywhere. Some particularly fruitful recruiting locations might include college campuses, religious gatherings, self-help and support groups, seminars related to spirituality or social change, and the unemployment office. In a 1990 article in the San Francisco Examiner, an unnamed ex-cult member commented on how easy it is to get sucked in. People don't realize how susceptible we all are. Those smiling faces lead you to buy it when you're naive and accepting. She was recruited on the UC San Diego campus when she was 19. Her parents arranged for her to be deprogrammed 8 years later. More on deprogramming in the Getting Out section. The main methods of cult recruitment revolve around deception and manipulation. Potential recruits are not told the true nature or intentions of the group. Instead, recruiters portray it as something mainstream, low pressure and benign. They may tell people at a church gathering that their group meets once a week to brainstorm ways to raise money for a new homeless shelter. They might invite a high school student to a talk about how public service can enhance a college application. Recruiters identify the specific needs or desires of their targets and play to them. They learn to pick up on a person's fears and vulnerabilities and portray the cult accordingly. For instance, if a young woman just went through a bad breakup, and she's feeling depressed and alone, a cult member might tell her that his group helps people to overcome interpersonal problems and rebuild their confidence for a fresh start. If a man just lost his wife in a car accident, and he can't bear that he didn't get to say goodbye to her, a recruiter might claim that his group helps people reach peace in the wake of sudden death. It might seem strange that someone would accept these types of invitations, but there are a couple of factors that make it seem more palatable. First, the recruiter might be someone these people know. He could be in that young woman's college dorm or that man's survivors support group. And someone who is sad, lonely or desperate might be more inclined to trust someone who claims to know the path back to happiness. Also, cults typically isolate recruits so they can't get a reality check. They may hold meetings or services at times that would normally be spent with family and friends. They may hold retreats that submerge the recruit in the group's message for days at a time, and they may ask recruits not to discuss the group with others until they know more about it, so they don't mislead people or give them only part of the story. This kind of isolation narrows a person's feedback structure drastically for a period of time, to the point that the only people they're really communicating with are the members of the cult they're being invited to join. Their doubts about the group, therefore, are never reinforced, and they end up turning into self-doubt, instead. Looking around them at all of the smiling, friendly people who have obviously found peace and happiness by following this path, it appears that it must be the right way. Once a person attends one meeting or service or lecture, he's invited to another, and another and another. He is welcomed into the cult family and invited to commit himself to the group. From day one, it's a process of manipulation and deception. And for those who stay on, the recruiting process culminates in the submission of their own personalities to the will of the group. In the next section, we'll see what cult indoctrination entails. Is my loved one in a cult? If you suspect someone you love is in a destructive cult, the first thing to do is remain calm and rational. Temporarily discard the whole cult thing and ask yourself why you're worried, what behaviors are causing you concern. Write them down. Are these behaviors dangerous? Destructive? If so, the next step is to try to find out if they might be a result of your loved one's involvement with the group in question. There are no absolute, scientifically proven checklists for involvement in a totalist cult, but here are a couple of sources that can help. If your research leads you to believe that your loved one's behavior can in fact be attributed to her involvement with a destructive cult, your next step is the same as your first step: remain calm and rational. Talk to your loved one about your concerns and listen to her responses. If your fears appear to be valid, consult a psychologist or exit counselor to find out how you can help your loved one without causing further damage. There are lots of organizations out there dedicated to educating and assisting the concerned families of cult members. See the following links for more information. How to identify a dangerous cult. It starts innocently. Maybe the new guy at work asks you to play bass in his indie rock band. A friend of a friend invites you to a free vegan brunch. Your mother-in-law wants to share a life-changing home business opportunity with you. Accept the wrong offer, though, and you could find yourself dead-eyed, berobed, and dancing around a burning pentagram to usher in the seventh age of blood atonement. No one wants that kind of life for you. When people think of cults, they tend to picture bizarre religious sects and apocalyptic scenarios, the Branch Davidians burning up in their compound in Texas, or the corpses on the ground at Jonestown, but cults needn't be religious, and are anything but exotic. If you want to get literal about it, any group of like-minded people could be considered a cult. The Democratic and Republican parties are cults, explained cult expert Paul Morantz. I'm in a cult where everyone wears the same color and we meet for rituals every Saturday. It's called the USC Alumni Association. Morantz is an expert in distinguishing between innocent book clubs and apocalyptic death cults. He's been battling fringe groups like Synanon and the People's Temple in court since the 1970s, and he says that while cults can be seductive, the dangerous ones can be identified and avoided if you know what to look for. If a guy went to a Bible study group, that's a front for a dangerous cult, and he's been educated about how you can be done in by the group, Morantz said, I think he could be okay. Look at who's in charge. Cults are formed around strong leaders, so take a serious look at the motives and personality of the person in charge. According to Morantz and other cult experts, control-freak cult leaders are nearly interchangeable. Narcissistic personality. Dangerous cult leaders usually hold grandiose notions of their place in the world. Ability to read others. A guy like Charles Manson had the ability to spot who, at a party, that he thought he could control. It just seems to be in his personality, Morantz said. Cult leaders have the ability to size you up, and realize your weaknesses and get to your buttons. Claims of special powers. If a leader claims he's smarter, holier, and more pure than everyone else, think twice about signing up. Charisma meets anger. Dangerous cult leaders can be extremely loving, charming and affectionate, but often turn angry and abusive with no warning. This mercurial presentation keeps members off balance. Look for signs of brainwashing. While the details of thought reform methods vary from cult to cult, the broad strokes have been around forever. So if you notice your righteous new friends using any of the techniques below, you might want to sneak out of the compound and call your dad. Isolation. Separating group members from family and friends forces them to rely on fellow cultists for all emotional needs. This is why many cults are based around communal living. And why cult members are so boring. Peer pressure. It's nearly impossible to overstate the power of social norms on behavior. The only reason you're wearing pants right now is because that's what they expect you to do, but when you manipulated peer pressure consciously, you can make people give away their life savings, marry a stranger, or listen to the horrible rock opera you wrote. Confession. Dangerous cults are notorious for making members confess to past sins, often publicly, then using those confessions against them. Some groups keep elaborate files of their members' pasts for blackmail. Control. Cults often tell members when to eat, whom to sleep with, and what to do every second of every day. This induces dependency, and leaves little free time to question what the hell you're doing handing out Bible tracts in Sausalito when you